you so much, Sally. I really, everything I've heard about SMART, it sounds super awesome. I wish it would have been around, or I would have found it when I first was looking around to get sober in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad it's here now, and I love that I have something that I can extend to my community that can't afford personal coaching, or, just they need more ongoing support than what I can offer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Why don't you give me, if you're comfortable, a little bit of your backstory and how you came to need or want SMART recovery?
Okay, sure. Most of my history is that of a critical care nurse, and I was unemployed when I decided to quit drinking a few years ago. It was about almost 4 years ago, not yet 4. And I decided to stop drinking, and because of some family matters, and it was just time. And I know I'm very late to this game. I'm 61 years old, so I'm very late to the whole recovery circles. But I don't know why I had it in my head that the answer to not drinking is to go to AA meetings. So that's what I did. And I'm very gung-ho about things. So I went a lot. I went like a crazy amount, a lot. And I was unemployed, like I said, so I was there all the time at the AA meetings every day for the first year. And but during that time, I noticed that a lot of people were relapsing around me, and this relapse was really bad. They were getting very dangerous, and I couldn't understand what they were doing different. So just out of natural curiosity, and I think my nursing background, I started investigating what real scientific evidence-based options are out there for addictions. And I found SMART, and really, because of my nursing background, that fit my scientific thinking. So I went ahead and got certified. I just saw this online. My certification was 3 years ago in December for my SMART. So I'm very late to this whole thing, but I'm very enthused about it. I think it's just a wonderful program, and I'm not very far away from San Diego, which is where Tom Horvath is. He's the founder of SMART, and I talked with him over the weekend. I went down to San Diego, went to their meeting, and I'm just really, really proud to be a part of such a good organization. But since I've become a meeting facilitator, it's kind of morphed into more of a harm reduction rehab, sources for rehab people in recovery. Because I always do Narcan training and that sort of thing. So it's changing a little bit, and I'm trying to get everybody on board with Narcan, the 12-step community, all the people at SMART. I'm pulling some weight in the SMART community, and I got them to have a new path harm reduction to come train all the facilitators. So, dead people don't recover. So we need to keep people as safe as possible first, and then they can figure out what they want to do from there.
Wow, so that's great. That's
kind of my story. Oh, and also I started working at a detox, as a detox nurse, and that was just about 2 years ago. And I learned there that this 12-step stuff is actually considered to be treatment for serious substance use disorders. And that was shocking to me.
That is shocking.
It was very shocking. And although they advertised as a SMART recovery rehab, that's the only reason I took the job, by the way. When I actually tried to teach SMART to the clients there, they said, absolutely not. This is a 12-step rehab. You can't bring those books in here. They sent me home with my books like I was doing something illegal or contraband or something. It was just very culty. So, and also I couldn't seem to convince them that they needed to have Narcan. I'm a nurse, and I'm looking around the med room. I'm like, where's the Narcan? This is a detox. And they're like, we don't have any Narcan. And I highly recommend it, since I was the registered nurse there, and I was the only one at the detox with any medical training, by the way. These places are fancy, and they have ocean views and stuff, but they don't have anybody that's trained. So I think people really, really need to be careful and do their homework before they sign up for rehab anywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was pretty shocking. I was only at that rehab for 2 months. That was the last job. Since then, I've been retired. But I'm
Really?
yes, Narcan is the drug that the EMTs give to revive somebody if they've had an overdose of opiates. But more than that, now it's starting to be drug users actually use it to save each other. It's a big tool with the harm reduction community because it absolutely saves lives. I just went to a opioid conference last week in Anaheim to represent SMART and harm reduction. And even at an opioid conference, that's all they're talking about is opioids and the devastation of it. And I just held up Narcan as people walked by my SMART table and I said, do you know how to reverse an opiate overdose? And most of them did not. So this is shocking and that is unacceptable. We've got to get people on board with science. And there was a lot of communities there. All the treatment centers just push 12 steps. They don't push science.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's very disturbing. And
is your background, your personal story, is that with opiates, or was it alcohol?
I did have issue with opiates. I had back surgery, and back in the day, and I've been on pain pills, or I was on pain pills for many, many years. So yeah, I did have a problem with opiates, and that is what led to the loss of my nursing job. But at this late stage of the game, I just decided 3 years of probation, it's just not worth it. You have to go pee in a cup every other day, and you got to pay for it with your own money. And plus, they wanted me to go to 12-step meetings. And I said no. I said, can I do SMART instead? And the guy that was in charge of my case in Sacramento said, absolutely, you can do SMART. He said, we can't force you to go to a religious program. And he said this to me on the phone. And I said, can I please have that in writing? Because most people deny that it's religion, or they don't know that it's religion. And he put it in writing for me. So that was good.
Oh, that is good. That is good. We need to see more of that. We at least need to have the choice to know if there's other options out there.
Exactly. People need to have a choice.
And that's a big problem. That is a big problem because then they truly are rendered powerless when they go into an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. Or rendered. You're not allowed to think for yourself or do for yourself. That's what got me ostracized from my community, which was the best thing that ever happened to me around month 6. So when they turned their back on me because my sponsor, the queen of AA, got upset with me, they turned their back on me, and so I had to choose: do I stick with AA or do I save my sobriety? And so I opted for the other, which was the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Yeah. The main thing I believe that led me away from the cult, I now know that it is a cult, is finding out that it's considered to be treatment. You know, that's just not right. It's not treatment at all. And that's what everybody's getting when they go to these damn rehabs and treatment centers. So that's just terrifying. We can't fix it.
Go ahead. What's the difference in your view, Sally? What's the difference between treatment and, since AA, and I know my answer, but I want to hear yours, is what's the difference between treatment and AA?
All the treatment centers are AA. That's all you're going to get.
Right, but you're saying that it's not treatment. So what is AA? What's the difference between real treatment and
what
AA?
Would I say is legitimate treatment?
Sure, yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yes.
I guess I know that there are some down in San Diego. They have some really good rehab treatment centers down there that Tom Horvath is in part of. And I would check. There are some decent ones on the SMART website that are CBT based, and they're not going to have any 12-step stuff. But most of them, 95% of the rehabs in this country, are going to be based on 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you don't play the game, you're not going to get through treatment. And you're probably going to end up, when you get out of this 30-day treatment, feeling less empowered and more diseased. So you're going to end up relapsing and going right back into treatment again. I see it over and over again. I had a lady that was on her 32nd rehab. They just get in this cycle of powerlessness and disease. I drank every day for decades. I don't have a disease. You know, I got over it. It's not a fucking disease. And if you tell people they're powerless, they're not going to get over it. Sorry, I'm getting worked up in AA because I was all gung-ho about I was a chip chick. I handed out different chips for different lengths of sobriety. And now I see how that was subtly shaming the people that weren't getting it. So I feel shame about my involvement in AA now, but I'm making up for it, so that's okay. But yeah, we don't obsess on a period of time since you last consumed a substance. That seems pretty ridiculous as a gauge of how well somebody's mental status is.
I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that they make in the 12 steps is that your whole, like everything that you've learned, everything you've been through, if you've been 2, 4, 5, 10 years sober, and then you drink and then your clock resets, it's like, how is that fucking possible?
Right.
But on the other side of that, if on the other side of that, if you're going to AA for all those years, I guess you're not collecting a whole lot of tools. The only thing you're collecting is meeting time in the rooms. So, interesting. Never thought about it that way before. Okay. So what does somebody, Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I actually had a couple of drinks within the past 4 years since I quit drinking. What?
And the monster didn't come out and get you?
You know what, Teresa? I did it just to prove to myself that it wasn't a monster out there in the parking lot trying to get me.
Doing push-ups, getting stronger, no matter how long you abstain.
That's so ridiculous. But yeah, I've had a few just to get rid of my sobriety date. It was just stupid. So I just went ahead. I've had 4 sips of 4 different drinks in 4 years. I think I'm okay.
I think you're okay.
And yeah, I got off of the pain pills too. That was a different issue, but that was another thing. When I was in AA, I went there because I wanted to quit drinking, and they wanted me to quit everything else I was taking. My sponsor even started crying at me one day. She said, "I don't understand why you won't do what I tell you to do." And she called.
Oh my gosh,
it was awful. All right. Well, my sponsor yelled at me because there was one of our sobriety sisters. She just kept relapsing over and over. It was always very dangerous. She would always end up in the ERs or jail. It was just like they would say in the meetings, jail institutions or death. She was always relapsing horribly. And I'm like, what's the difference? She was just like me. She was a nurse like me. She was on probation like me from getting in trouble with pills. And we had everything the same. We went to the same meetings, same sponsor, same everything. But she just kept drinking a lot, really a lot. Not just.
Hey, could you explain what a meeting would look like for somebody who's listening that's like, okay, you know, an alternative to AA, tell me all about it. What would they expect?
Okay, what I do is I write everything on the board when I get there, and I do a little spiel about harm reduction just because I want to keep people safe and alive, and I'm passionate about it, but I don't spend much, 3 to 5 minutes. I show them the Narcan, I open it up, I ask, if anybody has questions, but I don't do the full-on Narcan training. I just let them know what it is, and I also give them a fentanyl advisory, because fentanyl is frequently what's killing people when they talk about the opiate overdose. It's usually the fentanyl. And it's not just in heroin, especially in my neck of the woods in Orange County. It's being pressed into pills like Xanax, even upper pills like Adderall that college kids used to study. And they look like the regular pills. They're counterfeit pills. They look like the same. So you don't know if it's got fentanyl in it or not. So I give people a fentanyl warning, and I write that on the board. So, I mean, these people that come to my meeting, they're drug takers. And for anybody to pretend like people at recovery meetings are not taking drugs, that's like putting your head in the sand and ignoring the obvious. So all recovery meetings need to have Narcan, a little bit of Narcan training. It doesn't take much time. So this is a big goal. I'm trying to get that done, trying to get everybody on board with it, even the 12-steppers. So I do a Narcan thing. I do a harm reduction spiel. Harm reduction is principles and practices that reduce the harm of using substances. Nobody deserves to die because they use drugs. Examples are supervised injection facilities, needle exchange programs, drug testing, and Narcan. And then Sentinel Advisory, and then that's that. And then smartrecovery.org, I put the website on the board, and the 4 points is, number 1, build and maintain motivation. 2 is cope with urges. Most people in the beginning stages are working on those 2. And then 3 and 4, manage thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. 4 is live a balanced life. So there's 4 points. They can be worked on in any order. And when you're done, if you don't need to work on any of it, you graduate to move on with your life. There's no sponsorship or buddy system. Go ahead.
My question is because there's 4 points. So when they come in, what is there a discussion? Is there what's the actual meeting? Since everybody could be working on a different point, how would the meeting be ran?
Well, the meeting is just like you and I are talking right now, because almost everybody that comes into my meeting has never been to a SMART meeting before. So every single meeting is an introduction to SMART recovery, and of course to harm reduction. I'm not going to do SMART without harm reduction. So I combine the 2. So
so not all SMART and recovery meetings have harm reduction. And
no, not all of them do.
Okay.
But when I went down to San Diego and talked to the rest of the facilitators down there over the weekend, Tom, do you know Tom Horvath?
I don't.
Okay. He's been around for since the beginning of SMART. Anyway, he's the founder, and he's written some books on addiction, and he's a psychologist, maybe a psychiatrist, I'm not sure. But he said the main thing, he said everybody seems to run SMART meetings a little bit differently. Now down there, they have some meetings that are just tool meetings. So all they'll do is work on a tool. And one of the popular tools is a cost-benefit analysis, which most people are familiar with that to a certain extent. So some of those meetings down there are just where they go in and work on a tool or several tools. And it runs a little more like a classroom. Some of them just do what they call extended check-ins, where they all just introduce themselves and they talk and go back and forth. And by the time they're done, the meeting is over. I've never had anybody check in that long in my meetings. So the way I do my meeting is I do my spiel. I go over the things that are all on the board. The harm reduction, basically what SMART is, the 4 points, and then I go through a bullet point of what our program is. And you know, because treatment is basically AA, that's what these people know when they come to my meetings. So I have to give them something to compare it to. So I challenge them to introduce themselves during check-in with the most empowering language they can think of to describe themselves, rather than, and then I don't say this is in my head, rather than bringing yourself down with labels like addict and alcoholic.
Right.
All right. So when I went down to San Diego this weekend, Tom said, so everybody can run their meetings differently, but the one common denominator everybody should have is people should feel self-empowerment when they come out of that meeting. So since I do my meetings this way, I've already got that covered during check-in. People are saying the most proud of themselves things that they can think of. But that's what it is. SMART in a nutshell is a self-empowering program. So that's the whole purpose of the meetings and the program. It's all about self-empowerment.
Nice. So when do they do the point work? Are they given a workbook? Can they buy a workbook, or
Yeah,
how does that work?
the workbooks are for sale, and I buy them from the website and take them in. They're $12 each. And I always tell people that the tools are downloadable for free off of the website if they don't want to buy the workbook. But the workbook is full of lots of worksheets and graphs and things you can fill in and work. People like it.
Yeah.
They're $12, and I think Amazon sells them also. I get mine from the website, and I just take them in with me and sell them at cost. And we're supposed to pass the hat for donations, but I don't take a hat. But yeah, there's no fee. There's no fee for the meetings. I just wish more people would get involved in it, but it's a little bit of a barrier because it costs a little bit of money and a little bit of training to be a smart facilitator.
So I'm really glad to see that there is some training that helps you.
Smart Recovery is the only mutual support meeting like that has trained facilitators. I challenge everybody to introduce themselves with the most empowering language they can come up with that day. And then sometimes they're just feeling like shit, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't need to force my positivity on you. And they're cool with it. But yeah, everybody goes around the room, and I would say on a general night, about half of the people at least are going to be coming in from local rehabs. I live where there's tons of rehab. So mostly they'll be rehab. Mostly they'll be people who have never been to a SMART meeting before. So I have a small core group of people, but the point of SMART is to not keep going year after year. So it's expected to have turnover and people come and go. So there'll be a lot of
Do you have people who have been coming there for years?
I've only been doing it for a couple of years, and I've been doing it at different places. But this particular meeting, there's one man who's been there for at least a year or so. And in fact, I asked him to cover for me last week when I went to visit family for Thanksgiving. And he knows the SMART program very well, and he's accomplishing his goals. But I don't know if the recovery community would freak out, but the guy still drinks every day. But he's not drunk. He drinks, he moderates. And he said this way he's saving his life. A year ago this time he was in the hospital with alcohol-related problems and about to die. And he said, if I kept doing it the AA way, I'd be dead by now. So he was my star student. And so I let him cover for me and facilitate my meeting. Then we just it runs like a normal discussion, back and forth discussion. If anybody has a particular topic they want to throw in, if anybody's struggling with anything. I used to have people who would actually work at treatment centers who would come in and try to monopolize the meeting. So you'd have to just kind of shut that person down politely. He also would try to push the disease model very heavily because he worked at a treatment center. Anybody that works at a treatment center is going to try to push that disease thing on you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then the meeting runs like a normal discussion, and if it gets quiet and nobody has anything to say, or if they want, I'll go ahead and just work a tool on the board. I'll erase everything I put on the board and work one of the tools. I think there's like 14 different tools. They're all on the website and in the book. Cost-benefit analysis, ABC tool is a problem-solving motivational tool. There's the hierarchy of values, and there's just quite a few things. There's a really good facilitator named Caitlin Darfur, and she says SMART teaches you how to think, not what to think. And that's really good. It's a really good way to put it in a nutshell. It teaches you how to think. So regardless of what your goal is, your goal doesn't have to be abstinence. It doesn't have to be related to a substance. SMART is for any behavior that we look at it as a behavior that we want to change. So we get gamblers, there's people with sex, porn, internet, whatever, anything can be addictive and become problematic. So all those people are welcome in a SMART meeting.
Shoot.
Paid for SMART. All the SMART people are volunteers, as far as I know. So I think maybe some of them work in the field somewhere. Maybe they're in psychology fields. A lot of people that are psychologists, they also are SMART facilitators. They just go ahead and get their SMART thing. But they were a psychologist first.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess anybody in psychology already knows about CBT, but I was new to this whole thing. I had never been to a therapist or anything. I had no reason to know what CBT was. So when I took SMART Recovery class, that's when I learned about CBT.
Very good.
So,
anything else? What about the online meetings? Do you have any experience in that or know anything about that?
I know that a lot of people use them. A lot of people go online. I'm in charge of that big Facebook group with almost 4,000 people, and they talk about it all the time. But I've just never done online meetings myself. I'm not very high tech, so I just like face-to-face. But I understand they're okay. And there also is a 24/7 chat room on the SMART site, but I heard recently that it's not working. It's down for some reason.
Okay.
But usually that's up and running, and the online meetings are good. I've heard they're pretty good.
Because that could help a lot of people too. Just having somebody to check in with, yeah. Nice. From the comfort of their own home.
Right. Well, that's where I did all my facilitator training. I just did it right here in the living room, and I had never even been to a SMART meeting at the point that I took the training. I just knew that there had to be something besides AA, and I wanted to provide that to other people, especially the people in the rehab. And so that's why I went ahead and did the facilitator training without ever going to a SMART meeting. SMART meetings aren't necessary. Just go online and go to the website and read about it. Nobody needs to go to a meeting if you don't feel like it.
Good to know. That's really good to know.
Oh,
and yeah. And how long were you in AA? I know you were in it when you were in it, but how long were you in it?
I was in it, well, it was about 2.5 years ago that I stopped being in it. That I was working at that rehab, and I realized what a crock of shit it was. But yeah, I was in it every day for the first year, at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. It's only a few miles where I live, and I had nothing else to do. So
you're retired now.
I wasn't harmed by it personally, but I would have had to be blind to look around and not see the harm that it was causing other people.
Exactly.
But these people would talk about being newcomers, yet they knew that program backwards and forwards, and even would brag about growing up in it. And I'm like, if you grew up in it, how can you still have a problem with substances? I don't get it. It must not be working for you.
Such a good point. That's such a good point.
So yeah, I was in it hard and heavy. I was in it hard and heavy for the first year. And after my 18-month chip, I was done. I wanted to go back for my 2-year chip and just tell them to stick it up their ass. I did not do. And then last year was my third, and now I drank a couple of drinks, so I can't have a chip no more. Sobriety date's gone.
According to their sobriety, what they consider sobriety. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Anything else you want to close on, Sally? Anything you think would be important for somebody who's looking for
I
some
would
support?
love to get everybody involved with harm reduction. Please, if you don't know about it, just look it up, harmreduction.org.
Okay.
I just want people as safe as possible. And harm reduction is meeting people where they are rather than demanding them be what we want them to be, like abstinent, for example. Not everybody wants that. Not everybody's ready for that, but they deserve to be as safe as possible.
when I do you believe that when I'm working with a gal or a woman and I think therapy might be helpful, I always encourage her to look for a therapist who has harm reduction training. Do you find a lot of therapists do harm reduction training? Or is that?
I really don't know. I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Because I agree with you. I think saying all or nothing, I think that, especially for a lot of people that are very rebellious, they don't want to be told what to do. And when you tell them not to do something, that's when it seems like it just makes it all the more desirable. And so when you say it's not a big deal, whether you do or you don't, that's not the point. Are you wanting to get the most out of your life? That's what we're focusing on. It seems like it takes the power out of that desire.
Yeah. The point is to make the person feel more involved in their life and the decision-making process, rather than say, this was the rule, this, you got to make this line, and the line in the sand is abstinence, and this is what you got to do, or I'm not going to help you. That's the opposite of harm reduction. Harm reduction says, we love you the way you are. We will meet you where you are and walk alongside you and help you get the resources you need to stay safe.
Excellent. And that's not in all SMART meetings, but that's in your meeting.
Not in all in SMART meetings, but SMART Recovery does have a harm reduction approach because the person sets their own goal. We've recently changed wording from abstinence-based to abstinence-oriented because we understand that people are in a different cycle of change. When they come to a recovery meeting, they're not necessarily in that cycle of, quitting. So nobody has to be abstinent to come to our meetings at all. They can't be disrupted. That's the only rule. They can't be disrupted.
Right.
But not everybody is ready for abstinence when they walk into a recovery room. So we just need to accept each person where they are and go from there.
Very good. Well, I think we've covered all the bases unless you can think of anything else.
I think that's it. I think we're good.
Good. Well, enjoy your meeting tonight. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it, Sally.
You're welcome, Teresa. Best of luck.